Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition on a Sunday evening, broadcasting live. We're outside Louisville, Kentucky. Welcome, Gary Spikes. Welcome, Bigfoot Reports and Data. Nice to have you there. And let's see who else we got jumping in. Catherine. Yeah. Gene Hudson. And of course, we also got Eric. Can't forget Eric in the kilt, right? Yeah, nice to have you there, Eric. So let's see. I think we got a few more that starting to stack up. So Val, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Wonderful on here. Hey, listen, I just got off the phone with our good friend Harley Owens. A shout out to Harley down there in Tennessee. We can't forget about our friends down there.
So it's interesting you brought that up. So don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, we have a special edition show tonight at 7:30. Or after this, brought to you by Grizzly on the Hunt and Local News, which we have a special guest. So yeah, since you mentioned his name.
Yeah, Harley is a pretty cool dude. I like the man. I'm impressed by him. I've chit-chatted with him quite a bit. I really like Harley. Are you listening, Harley? I think he is.
Yeah, he is listening. Welcome, Derek. Nice to have you. Beard's up. I got my beard in full locomotion. I trimmed it a little bit. You can't tell. Usually I wear dark clothes, but tonight I've put the gray on so to showcase my beard. So LBL, Land Between the Lakes.
That's creepy.
Yeah. So one of my guys reached out to me, and I know Roger and everybody's going down in April. And I asked the guy that wants me to go. I'm like, how far? Hey, welcome, Missy Hammer. Nice to have you. Make sure you subscribe to our channel, Missy. Nice to always have new faces in here. You never know what's going to happen on our shows. But I asked the guy, that did his conference. I'm like, how far away is our campsite from our vehicles? And he got real quiet. And I was like, He goes, why do you ask? I said, I got a lot of gear. I got a chug and lug, right? And I was like, plus there's certain things I don't like to keep out in the car, if you catch my drift. Which we were talking about in the green room, right?
Oh, pow.
Yeah. So I'm going down there full commando style. So yeah, Eric, grow your beard out, man. I haven't measured mine. I trimmed a bunch of it off the bottom, trying to square it up a little bit. I still got to do some odds and ends, but so I'm trying to figure this out because I want to know how far it is away from stores and everything else we're going to be. That way,
that's important. That's important, Grizz.
Well, I mean, if I'm going to be down there for a week or two, I've got the necessary items. I just want to make sure that a certain lifestyle that I like is going to be able to maintain.
I hear you.
Yes, commando, Grizz. That's right. So, but that and my backup equipment that I can broadcast live in the woods or where we're going to be. I got to make sure I get reception. So,
I mean, when I go out, I want to make sure I know where the closest Motel 6 is or something. Something with a warm shower. You hear what I'm saying? I've done that so many times. Dirty, smelling like a mule, a sweaty old mule. It just feels good to be in a nice warm bed and smelling clean, wearing clean clothes.
Well, that's why I got the sanitary wipes. You can do your baths and everything with it.
But that's what camping is, right?
Right. So it's going to be interesting. I know that because it sounds like I'm going to be down there for a couple of weeks. So I wouldn't mind taking a shower at one point or another.
Oh, I'm telling you, I remember times when we hadn't showered in a week and a half, dirty, stinking. Those days are over, friend. Sleeping in the cold, eating in the rain. That's horrible. Horrible.
Have you ever heard of somebody weighing a beard?
Weighing a beard?
Yeah. Derek says my beard weighs a couple of pounds. I never in my life thought about weighing a beard. I don't know how much that weighs. Mine's nice and fluffy and soft.
You know, I was just reading something recently, Grizz, about here in Michigan. I think it was in Michigan. CDC, Center for Disease Control, has put out a article on deadly ticks. You know, and I remember coming back from the woods some time ago and sitting here diligently, minding my own business, and having something crawl on my neck and reach up and pull it out, and it looked like a tick. Those kind of things, that and walking through agricultural fields in particular, that have been sprayed with that Agent Orange, that Roundup stuff.
Right.
That stuff to me is enough to keep me out of the woods.
Yeah. Well,
It's not so much the snakes or
understand
anything
that.
else. You know,
I understand that. Yeah.
it's the hazards of going out.
So, I mean, I've got everything, and I'll probably bring some extras. But, ladies and gentlemen, our guest has just arrived.
Wonderful.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
So let's introduce Johnny. Come on down, sir. How you doing?
Johnny, you're on a camera.
What's going on?
Okay, Johnny is part of the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade. Is that correct, Johnny?
Yes, sir. That is it.
And you guys are made up primarily of prior military people. Is that correct?
Yeah, for the most part, we have a few people that are not.
Mm-hmm.
Like we have one lady, Angie Williamson. She's actually a parole officer, but she's super good at research and
nothing wrong with that, is there, Chris?
That. Yeah. So we got a mixed bag.
Parole officers always
cool.
hated me, Val.
Oh yeah,
because I always kept them steadily busy with paperwork in cases. Because I revoked a lot of people's parole. So
yeah.
Well, you're in good company, Johnny. You probably know that Grizz and I both are former law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
And so we kind of like that.
Yeah, we actually got another member. He was his name's Scott DeForest. He's also a BFRO guy, but he just retired from law enforcement, and he was also in the military. So yeah, that's cool. We got one of those too.
Yeah, let me tell you something. You know, when people tell me that they're going to law enforcement, I was like, I'll pray for you. Now these days, I wouldn't do it again. No, I'm sorry.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, no. But it's nice to have you. So give us some history about you.
All right. Basically back in about 2017, before I didn't know anything about Sasquatch at all. About 2011, we moved to where I live now, which is basically a house in the middle of the woods. I got two neighbors. One is about 100 yards to my right. One's about 100 yards to my left. And then I got and I got a wildlife management area behind me.
Ooh.
Yeah. And it's a pretty big management area. But so from 2011 until now, I had some weird things happen in 2012. It takes a while to go into detail with that. Basically, it was a very profound spiritual experience involving an orb. Now, I personally, I didn't know anything about the subject. I never had, only thing I was ever interested in was like UFOs, really. I had a vague interest in that. I'd watched the documentaries and stuff like that. But, I am Christian, but a couple of years before that happened in 2012, I had been struggling. Life had gotten extremely difficult. But that event, like I said, it takes a while to go into. Maybe if we got time, I'll tell it at the end. But it basically changed me. It basically, I'm one of those people that seeing is believing. Now, even though I did believe in God, I had a little bit of doubt and a little bit of anger. And this event kind of proved to me that number one, he's real, and number two, he's actually paying attention and cares. So that's kind of where the whole change in me started, to even being open to the topic of Sasquatch. Now, I don't believe, between me and my neighbors, I think there's 8 of us that have seen orbs around our properties. I've seen them all the way out to about a mile away from my house on the way home from work one time. Now, I personally, from what I've seen, do not believe it or not, that the orbs and the Sasquatch are related. It's just something weird that happened. And seeing these things made me realize, hey, we don't know everything that's going on. You know,
right? Totally agree.
I had no clue. You know, my mind had never really, any of these topics that came up, except like maybe UFOs, I enjoyed thinking about. I watched the TV programs like Finding Bigfoot, stuff like that. But I never really took it serious. So fast forward a couple of years to around 2017, my neighbors started getting harassed at night. And their parents actually live in the house in front of them, and they work for the sheriff's department. It got so bad that they were calling the sheriff's department about once every 2 weeks. There was a combination of things going on. It was slapping the house. There was rocks being thrown at people, sticks being thrown at people. They were just giving them hell. Now, I think, looking back now, I think it revolved around a teenage boy that was there. He seemed to be the focus of the animosity, is what it kind of looked like. I actually watched him get hit with a stick one night while waiting on the police department to show up. Something would happen over there. There'd be some ruckus, flashlights, yelling. I'd grab my gun. I'd run over there. That particular night, I think he said, like, somebody threw a stick at the window again or something like that. He called the cops. I'm like, all right, dude, I'm standing here with a gun. Oh, I left that out. He shot 3 times. That's what actually made me go over there. I heard the gunshots. So I ran over there. I talked to him. He told me what happened. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be standing here with a gun when the cops show up. So I'm going to go over here. It's not a good idea. So I got in the small wood line between my house and his house. Like I said, there's about 100 yards between us. And he's standing in the middle of the yard with his arms crossed like this. And there's a wood line to the side of his house. And I watched a stick. It's probably about 60 feet away. I watched a stick fly end over end. The stick was about that long, probably a little bigger around my thumb. Flew end over end and hit him right in the chest. Scared the crap out of him. He fell on the ground. He cussed, stumbled, going up the stairs, went inside. And I'm sitting there thinking, what in the... Who would be dumb enough to do that? Especially I would have lit up
the tree line.
Right. And that's what I'm thinking. Like, he just got done shooting. I was just over there with a gun. What idiot? Who would have the nerve to do that? And that's kind of when things started. I'm like, man, something's not right about this. Well, there's a couple other things the activity kind of started happening over here, but it wasn't like harassment like it was over there. It was like a lot of creeping around. I'd hear wood knocks. Now, at the time, I didn't know what wood knocks were, but I heard like super loud wood knocks. When I would come back, I've got German Shepherds, and something would be happening in the woods, and my German Shepherds would go to the fence, and then I walk over there, and on this one particular night, it sounded like a baseball bat hitting a telephone pole. Super loud. And I'm like, what in the world is that? Well, later on, I found out it was wood knocks. But I'm one of those people. I consider myself lucky because I've had the advantage of, I didn't just run into one of these things in the woods and then have my whole paradigm crapped on. You know, that happens to a lot of people. I consider myself lucky because it was all gradual, step by step by step by step. And then I got a little bit interested. Then I started getting a little suspicious. Then, I don't know, probably about a year into it, I found my first track out in the woods. And I'm like, holy crap, I think this is a Bigfoot track. It was out I found it with my son.
Mm-hmm.
So that planted the seed.
May I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So with all this action with the neighbors, right, in the firing of firearms, how did the police or the sheriff's department respond? What was their take on everything?
Just like me, they assumed it was kids.
I got you.
That it was just kids because you got a teenage boy and a teenage girl that live at that house. And then you got all this stuff that seems like kind of like teenage harassment. Nothing was getting stolen. Nothing was broken. One of the weird things, though, that kind of threw up a red flag is my neighbor called me over there one day and he's like, dude, I got to show you something. Now, his daughter's,
what color hair does she have?
Blonde. You think that's a thing?
Oh, yes.
Well, she's from what I heard too, she was at that age where she's turning turning into a teenager. So anyway, her bedroom's on the second story, and a lot of times that was the focus. Like rocks or sticks would be thrown up there, banging on the back of the house, all that. Well, he brought me to the backyard, and right on the tree line, I guess it's about 50 feet away from the back of the house, there's a big pine tree. And at the bottom of the pine tree, the grass was completely worn down. Like somebody had been sitting with their legs outstretched under that pine tree for like a month. I mean, it was just obviously worn down right there. So now he's kind of freaked out. He's thinking sex traffickers or something crazy, you know?
Yeah, I would think the same thing.
Right. So we all kind of got on guard. But then I think after finding that track, and then there were times where I heard it basically sounds like imagine the movie Planet of the Apes. Take the apes, put them in Native American attire, and then have them conduct a war party on a village. That's what it sounded like. And it was the craziest sound I'd ever heard. Me and my neighbor both were like, what in the hell is going on with this? Now, we heard this several times. I had no idea. That's what it was. Sounded like chimpanzees, basically.
Wow.
So stuff like that just kept building up. And I really don't know exactly besides the track, finding all these other things. I found logs shoved in the ground about 10 feet apart back by the creek back there behind my house.
Inverted logs, correct?
Well, not really inverted. They're about as big around as a grapefruit. And there was 3 of them, and they're about 4 feet tall. And they were shoved into the ground about 10 feet apart. Now, I specifically looked at these things, and you can tell in order for me to accomplish that, I would have to dig a hole in order to get them down in the ground like that. There's no way I'd be able to shove them down in there. But the leaves and the pine straw were shoved underneath it. You know what I'm saying? They're on the ground and then shoved in, and you can tell that's how it happened. Right.
Johnny, so can I stop you for a moment?
Yeah.
On that point, the 3 logs shoved in the ground. It's been explained to me by a friend of mine in Australia who first brought this to me as a possible communication vessel that Yowies use, Yowies being the Bigfoot counterpart in Australia. According to him, he sounds like a real outdoorsman, one of these Australian outdoorsmen. According to him, they've done this back and forth with Yowies in the past, and the in our case, in our situation, Bigfoot Sasquatch want to know who's in that house, who is on that property. And they're communicating, according to this friend in Australia. The Yowies customarily take sticks. Now, he didn't say logs, but he did say sticks. In my mind, I picture a like a cavalry banner, you know, like a spear,
right,
posted in the ground. And he says that they want to know how many people are on that property, and they in turn expect you, me, Grizz, or anybody else, when we see that, to post the number of sticks or logs in the ground to communicate how many people are here.
Really?
Yes. I mean, that's something to think about.
It is.
Well, I've experienced the, this is in Georgia.
Georgia.
Yeah. Now, one of the things, I'm kind of getting ahead, but one of the things I've noticed around here, when I have activity and I catch them, or something like I've captured super close vocals, I've got a really good growl where they were right behind the house. But a lot of times when I catch them, I'll go out the next day. And this has probably happened, I don't know, 8 or 9 times by now. But wherever the activity was, there will be a stick stuck in the ground right there. I've had that happen numerous times. I've documented that on our channel several times. So there's there's a lot of speculation, especially when it comes to the, structures and stuff like that. But I do 100% believe that, your buddy may be completely right, but I do think they use sticks 100%. Now, I don't know. To me, it kind of felt like they were marking distance. Like, hey, I got caught right here, so don't go past this stick. But that's just speculation. I have no idea.
In the military, we used guide sticks.
Yeah.
And I was referring to guide arms with the banners communicating the campaigns that the different groups were involved in. In the military, we used guide sticks to show the other squads and platoons where my firing zone ends, where yours begins, mine ends. You remember that in the military? Do they still do that?
Fields of fire. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, the Native Indians, they used their spears, with their feathers and stuff on it. And you see these old movies of them slamming that spear down after they communicate with the opposing soldiers. And the soldiers carry the guide arm with a campaign, broadcasting their campaigns. This is the wars I fought in. Slam that on the ground. There's a lot to be learned about this stuff.
Right.
A whole lot. And your talk about slamming the sides of houses and stuff. I don't know if you're aware, but I am a data miner. And that's some of the stuff that I do. I research and read these reports, look for patterns, and I label that particular act as house pounding. And there's a lot of that, and there's a lot of reasons for that, I believe. And as far as what you were saying about these odd things that seem to compile and compound over a certain period of time, that's classic Bigfoot activity. That's what they do.
Right.
It might start as something is things being moved around in your property, things stolen. And these are things that we normally dismiss as being forgetful. We forgot we put something someplace. This is what they do. And those are direct phases involved in Bigfoot activity and stuff. But as you said, at some point you found a Bigfoot. You found a track. And you've also heard vocalizations and stuff. So all of that points to exactly what you thought was.
Right. Yeah, it was definitely a process. And it got to the point to where, I started looking into I was convinced enough to actually start taking the topic seriously, at least enough to where I had to know. Because one of the nights, my wife calls me at work and there's somebody snooping around a car we had on the side of the house. She's scared to death. Actually had her go get her pistol, come on the back porch and fire 2 rounds, away from the car. But just to scare off whatever it was, things were getting very uncomfortable, for everybody involved. But that started to line up. I started, like you're talking about, started to see these patterns. I'd listen to podcasts and I'd hear these interviews and, the witness statements. And I'm like, wait a second, this sounds a lot like what I'm dealing with. So I basically got to the point to where I wanted answers, and I was getting impatient, and I was also angry, that we were kind of being put through this. I thought, still thought probably 75% chance it was still a person, but I'm still looking into the Bigfoot thing, because you never know. There's other things that exist that I didn't think exist, so maybe they do. So I wound up having to have a surgery. I had a rotator cuff surgery and then a disc replacement surgery right after it. So I was home for about 6 months. And during my recovery, all I would do was get up and walk around on my property. I'd do a daily walk. Well, eventually that turned into a nightly armed patrol, to where I was basically acting like a jerk. I'd heard about structures and, all this other stuff. So anything that looked kind of made, I would just kick it, rip it apart. Just walking around like Billy Bad Butt. Either way, I was going to scare off a human, or I was going to get some type of reaction for whatever these things were. Well, I did that for probably about a week. And then I was getting good enough for where I was actually working on my kid's treehouse. I got done for the day. It's probably maybe an hour before dark. I go on my front porch. I'm sitting there drinking coffee, and back on the other side of my yard, behind the treehouse, there's a tree about this big around, and it just starts going.
Tree shaking.
Yep, tree shaking. I jump up. I run over there. I don't see anything. It's downhill. So it's probably, I couldn't see like maybe the bottom 10 feet of the tree, maybe not that, maybe 8 feet of the tree. Anyway, I ran over there. I didn't see anything, but I'm like, wait a second, I got something here. Something's going on. So that night I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to go out and do my little patrol. I got all my stuff together. I got a pistol, a flashlight. By this time I had already bought a thermal. I open the door and my dogs instantly go to that side of the yard again. I'm like, all right, it's on. Somebody's here. So I go out of the gate, and there's a trail in between my house and my neighbor's house. I get to the very top of that trail, and rocks start hitting all around me.
Wow.
And it's like somebody took a handful of rocks and threw them up in the air, but not one of them hit me. They didn't even come close to hitting me, but they're falling all around me. I'm standing there, I'm like, what is that? I'm kind of shocked. Like, who's throwing rocks? And I'm like, all right, now this is, apparently I had not gotten to the rock throwing part of my research, because that convinced me, all right, this is a human. They're throwing rocks. Well, I back up, and I kind of get mad at myself because I got a little spooked. I'm like, all right, I can't, it's my chance. I got to figure out what's doing this. So I start walking again, and I get to the same spot, and rocks start hitting all around me again. And I yell out, if you hit me with a rock, I'm going to shoot you. And I waited. I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. So I walked down the trail. I was out there spinning around with my flashlight, my gun, looking through the woods. I didn't hear anything. I didn't see anything. I heard a little bitty bit, but like rodent type activity. That was it.
I'm out there 10, 15 minutes. I get done. I'm like, all right, whoever this was or whatever it was is gone. I walk up to the top of the trail and I'm standing there looking at in my neighbor's backyard with the thermal, looking at that wood line back there. And as I'm looking, there's a boulder about 30 feet away. It's probably, you can't see my arms, but it's pretty big boulders, probably 2.5, 3 feet tall. And that boulder is just inside the wood line. Well, from back behind that boulder, this thing growls at me. It goes, whoa. And instantly, I knew right then and there, all right, these things are real. I had never heard anything like it. The only thing, and I had a thermal in my hand, and the only thing I would do was turn my head just enough because I was afraid to move. Mm-hmm. I figured the next thing that was going to happen was impact. Mm-hmm. Something's about to hit me. Something's about to eat me. I'd never heard anything like that in my life. And I turned my head and I'm looking over there and I'm waiting. And then I just go, all right, dude, I get it. I know what you are. And I just backed up. From that point on, I was hooked. Mm-hmm. And it just gradually progressed. Kind of skipped through a lot of what happened here because I kind of want to get to our main research area if we got time. But so I got super involved in it, progressively looking for, I forgot this part of it. The next day when I went out there to look around that trail I was back there looking on, there was a part back there, and I didn't put this together till later on. There was a place back there in the pine straw where I kept finding bones. And this little trail that led back to where those bones were, there were 3 rocks this big around left in the trail the very next day when I walked back there. Mm-hmm. To me, in my head,
3 rocks.
Yeah. To me, in my head, those rocks were stay out. And that was almost as mind bending as the growls to me, just to put all that together. So like I said, I got super involved.
What's perplexing though with your encounters, and Val, interrupt me, is that firearms involved, shots are being rung out, fired across the bow, and these creatures do not care.
No, that's one of the first things that I learned when I started doing this is a lot of these things that are considered gospel in the Sasquatch community, they are not. They are based on people's individual experiences. So if somebody tells you, hey,
you just said it,
a Sasquatch will or a Sasquatch won't do something, now that may be what you've experienced, but we have nowhere near enough data to start making these standards and writing a Bible about them. You know what I'm saying? Because
I agree with you.
Every sighting and the mass majority of the activity I've had, I've been armed. They haven't cared one bit. They've never, no, I've never pointed a gun at them, but the firearms have never made a difference. So that was one of the things that
during my encounter in Michigan, I was armed for sure. And it had to have seen my weapon. I like in your case, I didn't point it at it. I never felt threatened, but I felt the overwhelming feeling of something way powerful, way more powerful than me. And in my mind, and then I find out, I knew that there was a second one up in a tree that I seen. That was 2 of them. One that was on the tree that I seen, another one in the adjoining tree. But when this was sent to UK and they looked and examined that photo, it was sent back to me with circles on it. And they said, Val, did you know that you had 4 or 5 other ones on the ground, laying on the ground, all around you guys? But I'll tell you, as a student of Zhenju in the art of war in chess, I was grateful that I was given the opportunity to leave that area in peace.
Yeah.
I didn't have it in my heart to commit malice or harm to anything, anybody or anything. But I'm going to tell you something. When we left that site, I told my partner at the time, who was there with me, if that thing comes out of that tree line on all fours, I says, I think I'm going to have a heart attack right here.
Mm-hmm.
It was big. It was very big. It was unnaturally unhuman. It was just big. It was just something that I had never expected. And I've seen some stuff in my journey in life, but I never expected to see something like this and that big, 9 foot tall. So, it's somebody told me from Tennessee, as a matter of fact, Janice Carter told me one time that, I mentioned that, I was standing there looking at this thing and it was blinking its eyes at me. And I thought by provoking it, I would get the human that was dressed in a costume to laugh and chuckle a little bit. But this thing looked at me, blinked its eyes, and it was obvious that it was not a human. And how foolish I was to think that I could get a response out of this thing. And that's when it dawned on me, when reality strikes, that's when you're in knee deep in this.
Right.
You want to find out what these things are? Careful with what you wish for, because when it strikes you hard.
Right.
And I didn't go back into that area for about a year because I did not want to encounter something like that again. But they're very real. And the idea that you've encountered tree shakes, those are oftentimes diversionary tactics, because something else is happening behind you that you don't see. And it's like sleight of hand. Watch my hands, watch my eyes, but don't watch the hands. And then that's when you get it. That's when you get the sucker punch.
Yeah. We experienced a little bit of that out at the research area we call the happy place.
Mm-hmm.
But
are you a gifter? Do you gift? And
I've tried a little bit of everything around here.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I've had rocks moved.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a rock left back down by the creek on a stump that looks like a skinning stone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was after we have chickens. So I leave a lot of eggs.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried things to where I could try to figure out, is it a Sasquatch? Is it not a Sasquatch?
What kind of eggs do you leave, Johnny?
Just chicken eggs.
Are they store-bought or fresh?
No. We have chickens.
Free-range chickens,
Free-range chickens, yeah.
They love those eggs.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if it's them eating it or not, but there's been several things that have happened that were kind of groundbreaking in my research, and it just so happens to be after I left eggs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they like the eggs. I haven't yet to find any way to where I can put something back there and then know 100% if it's them or not.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of to the point to where with something like that, I don't want to try to trick them. I don't want to lose the trust that it's taken 6 years to gain, because I'm to the point now to where about 2 months ago, there's a spot I can go to on my property 5 times in a row. And this is all on video. I would go out there at night. I'd walk to the same spot. I would sit down. And about 5 minutes later, they would start throwing things, doing tree breaks. The second night I did it, they ran up behind me. They got probably within 30, 40 feet of me. Just throw after throw after throw after throw after throw. I've got like hours of recordings of vocals of this or audio of this, because I'm using a GoPro at night and I'm not using a flashlight.
Mm-hmm.
So visually, it's not really good for people. But the audio, you can hear all this going on. So, but the past 5 nights that I've been out there since the moon cycle changed, right before it turned into a full moon, and then it got to a full moon, dead. I've been out there 5 times since that's happened. I haven't had anything happen. So I don't know if they're not if they're here or not, or they just don't like the fact that they're in this pattern. You know, all of it's just guessing. But yeah, I mean, I've done a little bit of everything. But with the gifting, it got to the point where I was like, you know what? I don't want to try and trick them. I'm just going to give them stuff. And I've never had really, except for that rock. No, I've had 2 different times where I've had rocks show up. I've had rocks moved, but they won't take anything human. I've tried little trinkets and stuff, balls, Legos, stuff like that. They won't touch them. I've had squirrels left. One of those afternoons, I was back there. I found a squirrel that looked like it was literally bit in half. And it's on the other side of the creek, right across from where my sitting area is now. This is what I consider their hill, is where I think they're hanging out at night. I walked up there. I found this squirrel just bit clean in half. Weirdest thing I'd ever seen. No guts or anything anywhere. It's just half of a squirrel.
No blood.
No blood anywhere. It was like it was brought from somewhere else. Like it didn't happen right there.
Never come across of a deceased squirrel in the woods.
Well, that happened, and then I left eggs up there. I don't remember if it was the very next day or the day after that. My wife said, "Hey, there's a dead squirrel behind the chicken coop." I'm like, "What?" I walk back there behind the chicken coop. There is a dead squirrel, and it looks like it just fell asleep right there. It's just right out there in the middle of everything, right behind the coop. I don't know if they thought maybe I like squirrels, or maybe they're saying, "Yeah, no more eggs. I want squirrels." I don't know what it is, but they left the squirrel.
There's been reports of these mega regional corporate chicken farms. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, we eat the chicken, and they come from large corporate operations. Well, at some point, they have to collect the rotten eggs, the bad eggs, the imperfected eggs and stuff, and they take them to a particular location to dump them. And the individual, the witness that noticed this and reported it, claims that the Bigfoot Sasquatches love the rotten eggs. It doesn't matter if they're rotten. It doesn't matter if they're fresh, wholesome eggs. They eat the yolks and stuff inside. And I heard, I don't know that this is true. I don't know that it's fact, but there is a nutrient within eggs that blocks certain bad stuff that we people have ingested. And it might have been some claim, again, I don't know this to be fact. It's just something to ponder. I heard that that's one of the reasons why there was a sudden egg shortage in this country. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
Not too long ago.
Right.
But as far as Sasquatch goes, Bigfoots, they're the ultimate natural medicine things, I believe. And part of that is due because they are not natural to this world, to this earth, this terra firma that we stand on. They're from someplace else. So they have a little more knowledge of things than we do, or that we've been led to believe we know and stuff. So,
well, I know they are super, super intelligent, which was one of the biggest surprises. I always suspected at the beginning of this that it was just a monkey. And then the more I progress,
I see that comment. Tennessee, Kentucky, Bigfoot. Exactly. You're exactly 100% right. There you go. Go ahead, Johnny.
But yeah, they're a lot smarter than that. But to where was I?
Sasquatch being smart and intelligent.
Not an ape.
So anyway, with I kind of go back to where so I've seen 3 of these things.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was about a year, almost. It was the same month, a year after I got growled at that night.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the most boring. People get irritated at me when I tell this story because it just bores me so much. And I was so disappointed by my first sighting just because I was sitting on my front porch and it was at night. And, my neighbor's house is more kind of in front of me and to the right a little bit. Now, when they turn, it's a big white house. So when they turn all the lights on, it's like a movie screen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm sitting out there on the porch and I look up and there is a Sasquatch. I'm going to guess around 7 feet tall, walking down my driveway. My driveway comes at an angle across the front of my house.
Mm-hmm.
And it's walking down my driveway, and I could see the full body silhouette of it because it's backlit by that house, by my neighbor's house. It's only, I think I used a rangefinder. It's 65 feet away. It's how close it was.
Mm-hmm.
And this thing was, and everybody always says it, but it's true. It was every bit of 4 feet wide. When I first saw it, I saw its right side profile. Mm-hmm. His chin stuck really far out. And then the hair was crazy. My partner, Joe, he makes fun of me all the time because he's got this thing had 1980s rock band hair. From what I saw.
Oh, you just painted a picture.
Yeah, it was like a
good
lot
description.
of hair from what I can tell, And so I see it from the side and my dogs at this point, they're useless. They didn't even know what was going on. They're just laying there doing nothing. And I'm like, what? And I stand up to get a better look. And when I do, its legs are still going down my driveway in that same direction, but it turns its upper body towards me like this.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps walking in that direction. And then that's when I see how wide this thing was. And I'm like, holy crap.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it was cool, but I only saw it for about 6 seconds, maybe 5 or 6 seconds. But I have no
time. I rode the lightning several times.
Yeah. I had no doubt what I was looking at. Now, later on, you put a little time in between incidents and sightings and stuff. Those wheels start turning and you're like, man, I just don't know. Maybe I messed up. Maybe I made a mistake, So I was still only, with all this going on, I was still only probably about 90% sold that I was right. And these things were 100% real. And I still had no idea which direction. I didn't know if they were ghosts, if they were monkeys. I wasn't sure exactly what I was dealing with. So I met my partner, Captain Joe Cayley. He's actually, he hates when I say this, but he's a bona fide war hero. He lost his leg saving 3 civilians in Iraq.
God bless him. God bless him.
Absolutely.
Super good guy. He actually, I think he helped start it, but he runs the VGA, Veterans Golf Association.
Nice.
And he also works on a TV program called The Pigman. It's a hunting program, right? Well, I had started this little rinky-dink Facebook page just to find partners. Mm-hmm. And then Captain Joe contacted me because I started posting some of my stuff from around here. Well, he told me his story. And it happened on an Army base here. I think now it's been about 5 years since this happened, but he was actually running. It's called the Mammoth Sniper Challenge. He set the whole thing up. He was in charge of the whole 9 yards. He's out there and he's got all these shooters out there firing. and he's looking through a spotting scope. Well, there's a Sasquatch that walks across. There's the last berm that they're firing on. There's a fire break that runs down, I think, the side of it, he said. Well, anyway, it walked across that berm, or that fire break road.
Mm-hmm.
And he got a super good look at it. He's using a spotting scope, right? So he sees this thing. So he tells me about that. I kind of do a little report on it. We become friends. Some time goes by, and one day he just says, "Hey man, let's start a podcast." And I said, "No, there's no way in the world. I don't want to have anything to do with that stuff."
Mm-hmm.
You know, all I want to do is see one of these things. That's all I wanted to do. But he said, "Man, watching the stuff going on around your house, you know, I feel like I have backup. I feel like, you know, I want to tell everybody about what I saw."
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, dude, if this guy, how do we live in a world where a guy like this is walking around, especially under the circumstances in which he saw it, his background, everything else, what he's done for his country, but he has to walk around feeling like he's carrying a secret that no one will believe him about.
Exactly.
Like, that irritated me. That really, it ticked me off, to be honest with you, to think that he thought he had to be ashamed to admit he's seen these things. So I agreed. All right, let's start a podcast. Well, we also started how long do y'all's episodes go?
You're good. Go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah.
This may take a minute.
You're fine.
All right. So we start a podcast, start doing some interviews, stuff like that. I start trying to put a team together because I want to do field research. That's what I'm interested in doing. We bring Angie on, Angie Williamson. She, like I said, really good reports, talking to people, everything else. Kind of start building a team. Well, we get Captain Joe tells me about a guy that he talked to. His name's Happy Harris. Now, both of them are both from the Augusta, Georgia area. And Happy grew up right outside of Augusta. And he told Captain Joe a story. And Happy said when he was 19 years old, he's got a buddy that owns about 300 acres. I think it was way more than that back then. But he had grown up with this friend, grown up going out to this property. And he went out there deer hunting one afternoon by himself. Well, he's walking down. There's a long, it's a pipeline that runs right down the middle of this property. Well, he's walking the pipeline and he comes up to it looks like a makeshift hunting blind. Mm-hmm. He thinks his buddy set it up or somebody else did. So he goes and sits down in this thing. He says he's there for, I can't remember how long he said, for 20 minutes or whatever. And he's sitting there, and two of these things come up behind him, screaming at him in samurai chatter. Mm-hmm. And he describes it as the Ron Moorhead Sierra sounds, is what he always brings up. Well, it scared him so bad he passed out. Well, when he wakes up, he's back in the front seat of his truck 300 yards away with the door open. Has no clue how he got there. Now, he won't say it, but looks to me like they picked him up and they put him in his truck. Why they did that, I don't know. Or was he in just so much shock that he didn't remember getting back to his truck and then fell asleep again? You know, we don't know what happened. But out of all the reports, it really stuck out to me because, number one, you hardly ever hear these things touching people. And in order for it, in my head, it was like, all right, if he's kind of grown up out there, these things have probably seen him over and over again. You know, it's very intimate. Like, why did they pick him up and take him out of there? Was it to protect him? Was it to protect them? You know, what's going out there? So I was super intrigued. Well, we get a team together. So it's me, Captain Joe, Scott DeForest, and Happy. we decide that we're going to go out. Now, we went and checked out Captain Joe's hunting property. He's got some activity out there too. We found I think it was 17 dog carcasses in one area on his property. But so we go out there to check out this property. Now, this property has been in this particular family for, it's a King's Grant. That's how long it's been. Every one of us right now have a product that his grandparents made in our house right now. I guarantee it. Because there was two big families that married each other. And that's who his family is.
What's the last name?
I can't tell any of that.
Oh, okay.
Every bit of that's why we call it the happy place. We leave out the location, the property owner, the whole 9 yards. We haven't told anybody anything about that per his request. So, but I can give you a hint. Half of the family dealt with sugar. Is what I will say. So they're of great means. They got a lot of property.
Great means.
So we all go out there to this property and we walk through a little stretch of woods and we get out to this pipeline, and Happy is looking for the spot where his incident happened. We're going to do an interview, go over his story, blah, blah, blah. We're only there about 5 minutes. Scott DeForest finds first set of tracks. He yells out, "Hey, I got tracks." I look down. I find a track. We got all this on video. We're already kind of celebrating. We're like, dude, Happy, we've already, this was 30 years ago, and he didn't tell anybody for 30 years. It scared him so bad he quit hunting and never told his buddy why he quit. He just quit going out there pretty much. So this was a big deal for him. So we follow these tracks. We go in the woods. We all kind of split up. And then we come to a big bed. It looks like something sat down on the forest floor and grabbed all the pine straw around them and drug it to the middle. It's about, I laid down in it. So it's probably about 7 feet wide. A perfect bed. And there was even a crease in the middle of it, like something had been laying down in it. We found that. We kept on going. We found another one just like it, but older. One that looks like they had abandoned. So now I'm thinking, crap, we found tracks. We got these beds, like these things. We found a bunch of bones out there. We found the most convincing evidence I'd ever seen personally out there. We had a good day. That first night, we actually had recorded a vocalization. They got super close to us on the wood line. This is all recorded. They threw a rock at my vehicle. They were grunting and growling. I got one of the coolest vocals. It starts out like almost like canine, and then it goes, oh, boo, boo. Just super obviously not an animal. It's them. All this is recorded. So that was great. We go out there about, I think on our third trip, we get out there. Me and Scott checked the other side of the wood line that we didn't really get a chance to check before. And we come to a spot in the creek where there's 2 handprints in the mud. It looks like they stuck their hands in the mud and then pulled their hands back. We found that. We found what appeared to be a structure with a 10-point deer skull underneath it. Did
you take a picture of any of these things?
We actually have a little mini documentary on the channel.
Oh, okay.
We documented every bit of this. So we get done doing that. We meet up with Joe and Happy, and where we've been hanging out is in the middle of this pipeline. That's where we've had our fire and we got our vehicles and everything. So we'd been out there already for probably 3 or 4 hours. Happy shows up. Joe shows up. We all talk, hang out. Happy's got to leave. He's got to go to work the next day. Well, me and Captain Joe decide we're going to go check these beds out again, right? We're just going to go check and see if anything's changed or whatever. So we go back to the side we started on, and Scott stays there at the trucks. So we walk down this little trail, and what it is, it's imagine it's shooting lanes, but it's like a Y, but with three legs, kind of. But it's all grown up now, or it was then. It's been recut. So it's basically thin pine saplings right there where we're walking. So we walk back there. We're probably gone maybe 45 minutes. I don't remember finding anything spectacular, but we're walking around. Joe's about 60 feet behind me. I stop, and this is where we learned a lot that day. Now, at the time, I never thought in a million years that I would ever have an opportunity to actually get one on video during the day. So to be honest, I wasn't trying as hard as I should have. Now I go out, I look like RoboCop. I've got rear facing cameras, and I'm using a camera. Everybody's got to be filming. Somebody's got to be filming at all times, pretty much is the rule now. But I did have a rear facing GoPro on my backpack. And I'm filming everything with my phone, my iPhone, walking around. Well, I stop, and there's a old set of deer antlers. Put my phone in my pocket. I bend down, pick up the antlers. I'll look at it. I'm like, oh, more antlers. That's like number 10. Throw them down. I start walking again. I make it about 20 feet. And I don't know what made me look, but I stopped dead in my tracks, turn to look to my right, and there is a Sasquatch standing there out in the middle of God and everyone, completely unobstructed. This is maybe an hour and a half before the sun goes down. Now, I've been calling it a juvenile because it was my size. I don't know if it was or not. It could have been a female, an older female for all I know, but just size-wise, it gives you an idea. But it was standing there when I walked up on, or when I turned. Number one, I didn't hear anything. I heard absolutely nothing. It's only 50 feet away from me. If I wouldn't have turned and looked, I wouldn't have known it was there at all. There's nothing in front of it. There's hardly anything behind it for, I don't know, 80 feet. I mean, it's in the middle. It's just right in the middle of the woods, standing there looking at me. And it's standing there. It's got a bend in its knees. It's got one arm up like this. And it's kind of looking down at me like this. And I can see it's black. It's one of the prettiest blacks. It's almost purple. Very, very strange black. Yeah, blue like black. A blue black. That's a very good description. Joe says like new tires, but yeah, it's a better description. But its hair is all black. Its face is gray. I can see its eyes barely, but because its head's bent like this, this part's light, but I can't really get it. I'm not like seeing the whites of its eyes. But it's got a white goatee. And the one thing that shocked me over any of it on how it looked is it had a big, like a cow lick. Like it was, the hair on the front was like crazy stuck up. Like it's got a cone head type look, but that cone is, to me, look more hair than anything. So I look at it, but I don't have my phone in my hand. So the only thing I can think of is I got that GoPro running on my back. So I act like I don't see it, and I turn around and turn my back to it and start going like this. And I reach in and I grab my phone, I turn it on, I turn back around, it's gone. I yelled at Joe, "Hey, Joe, I just saw one. It was just standing here." He's like 60 feet behind me, and I can't hear much of what he's saying. He says something, but I couldn't hear him. Later on, after watching the video, he's hearing it crash through the woods, basically at his 1 o'clock. And my dumb butt is looking the complete opposite direction because I never thought that it would go back towards our camp. and then go in front of Joe.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what it did.
Mm-hmm.
So I went looking the other direction, didn't find anything. We come together with him. I'm telling him, oh my God, this is crazy, blah, blah, blah. I just saw one. We separate. I go back to see if I can find tracks from where it's standing at. And he yells, I see it. Well, I come back together with him, and there is a berm, this dirt berm, probably maybe 4 feet tall, where they dug. I don't know if they dig in test holes or what they dug, but it's just a pile of dirt out there.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe saw it from the waist up. Same one walked right in front of that berm. Well, the weird part about that was it's been 5-6 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So why is this thing walking out? How is Joe seeing it? It obviously hung around.
Mm-hmm.
So I call Scott and tell him, hey, man, be on the lookout. Me and Joe just both saw one. And he's like, all right, I'll keep a lookout. So we keep walking in that direction. It's going on that trail that we came in on.
Mm-hmm.
And this is all on video too. Every time we stop and talk, because we're both super excited, we can't believe this just happened. We're describing things to each other. But every time we stop, we start hearing breaking and stuff up ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's intentionally making noise. So we keep walking. We come to a little creek. I look down, and there are fingerprints in the mud where it went down on all fours. To this day, it's my favorite piece of evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Because it, like literally, I stuck my fingers right in the mud right next to it, and they look exactly the same.
Mm-hmm. Only larger.
Oh, no, it was actually my size.
Oh.
Yeah. That's why I think it was the same one that I saw, because that one was my size. That's why we call it a juvenile.
Yeah. And you kind of got the feeling that was a female?
No, I don't know whether it was a female or not. I did not see any sexual organs at all.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, I did not expect the way it looked. The way it looks, I did not expect it at all. Mm-hmm. But so we're talking about the tracks. It starts making noise again. Me and Joe keep following. We make our way out to the pipeline. We think, all right, we're done for today. But this is crazy. This is nuts. I'm recording Joe. I'm like, Joe, you look like you just got in a firefight, buddy. I mean, his eyes were this big around. He's like, dude, the thing just, it basically just herded us back to camp.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah, dude, this is nuts. I can't believe this happened. And then Scott yells something, and I can't hear him. So we walk back towards camp, and he says, hey, right before you two, he was looking with his binoculars.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, right before, he's looking down there at the edge of the pipeline where the wood line is. And he sees something come out, and he can't tell like what it is. It looks really strange.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turns and faces him. And it is the Sasquatch, probably the one we saw, on all fours doing what everybody describes as the spider crawl.
Mm-hmm.
It's got his arms and his legs bowed out like this, and his head's up kind of like a periscope, looking around. Mm-hmm. And it does a button hook and goes back in the wood line. And he says, 10 yards away, you guys come walking out.
Mm-hmm.
So that thing was that close to us, and we never knew. So,
really?
Believe it or not, the story's not over with. So I call Happy. I'm like, dude, you are not crazy. Me, Scott, and Joe just saw this thing. I'm like, we're all happy telling the story. I'm congratulating him. You've been vindicated. I'm going to tell the whole world, you know, you're not crazy. I'm not crazy. Joe's not crazy. We've seen them. We've finally seen them.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I don't know, 25, 30 minutes goes by. Now I've got my thermal camera set up recording on that wood line. And we're standing there. We had the worst luck in the world that and we just sucked. We had to learn all this stuff on the fly. None of us had any experience with cameras or videoing or making videos or none of that. But we're all, me, Scott, and Joe are there at that campfire area talking about everything, you know, giving each other details of what we saw and blah, blah, blah. And Scott says, there's another one. I look up and there is a larger one that had to be a full-grown male. Same color, solid black, running on all fours across that pipeline no more than 100 yards away from us. It runs, and it's still daylight. It's still, I don't know, maybe 40 minutes before it gets dark, 30 minutes before it gets dark, something like that. But it goes all the way across the wood line, and it hits the other wood line, turns right, and then runs straight towards the creek. Well, I take off running after it. Obviously, it outran me, and I didn't see anything ever again, blah, blah, blah. Now, bad luck. My memory was full. About 20 minutes after I set my thermal up, it ran out of memory. And it happened like 28 minutes later. If I would have had 8 minutes more, I would have got a video of that thing running across. Now, when I say run, I had to make a video describing this. The best way, after looking at different animals, the best way to describe it is literally like a frog jumping is how this thing ran. Mm-hmm. It was the strangest thing in the world to watch because of how big it was, yet how fluid it was. And it would jump and its legs would be behind it and its arms would be out like Superman, like this. Mm-hmm. And then they would come together in the middle and he would do it again. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't even really like running. It was more like jumping like a frog, but as fast as probably a dog runs. That's how fast it was going. And it didn't go straight. There was water out in that field. Mm-hmm. So it was like it was avoiding the water. So it would be straight, and then it would land sideways, couples jumps, and then turn again. It was like watching Frogger. It was like watching a 500-pound Frogger game, basically. Mm-hmm. So that was the bad luck. We didn't get it on the thermal. I didn't have my phone in my hand when I first saw it. I found out later on I didn't get it on the GoPro because when I turned my back towards it like this, it went the same direction I turned. So it had already gotten around by the time I got my back to it. But when I was going through the video, when I got home, I found it in the video. After Joe sees it and him and I come together and we're walking towards that first creek where we found those fingerprints, I'm recording that wood line. Well, this thing is no more than 40 feet away from us, still in that wood line. First, just looking around the side of a tree like this. And then it goes down and it backs up and it's back at the bottom of the base of the tree. Mm-hmm. 90% of the video is blob squatch, but there is one super clear 100%. It's the face of a Sasquatch. Wow. And this is not going out in the woods and taking a picture of the woods and then saying, hey, here's a Sasquatch. Mm-hmm. This is 100% not only a Sasquatch, it's the Sasquatch that I saw with my own eyes. Because the way I found it was because of the goatee and because of that big thing up top that it had. And I was looking for that color and I found it in the video. Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm. Johnny, can you share that with my group?
Yeah, wherever you want me to send it, I'll send it to you.
So, Val and Johnny, I got another show I got to go to. So, just incredible, unbelievable.
It's very good. Thank you for stopping in here, Johnny. Do you want to plug your group or anything now?
Absolutely, please do.
Yeah, the Sasquatch Encounter Brigade on YouTube. Mm-hmm. We got a Facebook page also. But I'll what do you have?
I've got Michigan Bigfoot Gumshoe Guy's Corner.
Oh yeah. I'm already on that. Yeah, I can send that to you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah,
And,
I can send you.
Grizz, do you want that on your group site?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Worldwide. Go ahead and give that
Bigfoots and cryptids. So Val, make sure to get it on there.
Yeah, I'll swing it over to
Grizz. Send that all to me, and I'll send you.
Yeah,
I got all kinds of stuff. Vocals.
Thank you, brother, and let everybody know there. Let the people know that we really, really enjoyed you coming in.
Yes.
And we love the fact that a lot of you guys are military and stuff and do public service and stuff. And that's really great. That's admirable. Really.
Well, I appreciate your
Pat
you
yourself
guys'
on the
service
shoulder.
and everything y'all did.
Well, thank you very much. And from
Yeah,
coast to
you, brother.
coast, everybody, we'll catch you on the next show at 7:30.
Thank you, guys.
10 minutes. All right.
Bye now.
It's a grizzly.
Should we get out of here?
No, we're gonna watch and listen.
Action.
It's a grizzly.
Oh, shit, should we run?
No.
Action.
It's a grizzly.
Oh, should we run?
Okay. It's a grizzly.
Are you sure it's not a chipmunk? Action. No, I'm out of here. Action.
It's a grizzly.
I'm out of here.
Huh. Maybe it is a chipmunk. It's a grizzly.
Are we gonna die?
I don't know. We're just gonna sit here and listen and watch.
Let's get out of here, maybe.
Fall!